Okay, so quick and easy rundown of Midnight Whistle. As always, this is not at all comprehensive. It is just a quick summary on all the main plot beats of the event and the larger main story implications, if any, which there are a few, kind of. If you do want something more comprehensive, Afflatus has a much better summary out as well, so go ahead and check that out. I'll toss the link in the description, unless I forget. Right. So, the story starts out at a train station and the mood is already somewhat dire. Passengers and refugees alike are awaiting the arrival of the Danube Dawn in order to get the hell out of Dodge, as there is a conflict currently raging with the train bound for Budapest, which I can only assume is marginally more peaceful than their current location. We are introduced to a mysterious disguised boy who is chatting with people at the train station regarding various urban legends about the Danube Dawn, specifically that the train is plagued by a vampire and that people tend to go missing and random mysterious stuff seems to happen on board. We also find Semmelweis at the station, who is there on a mission for the Foundation, though strangely enough her team has not yet shown up, and we will later find out that they will never show up. Now, this story takes place after the Fifth Storm, so at this point, Semmelweis has not yet been infected with vampirism. The events at the station are abruptly interrupted when a would-be refugee steals a ticket from an elderly lady, hoping to gain passage upon the dawn, and in his frenzy, falls upon the tracks right as the train arrives. He is unable and unwilling to get out of the way, and the contents of his person are promptly and messily distributed across a few dozen yards of rail, which just really kind of sets the tone for this whole event. It does get quite gory. The ticket that he has stolen falls into the mysterious disguised boy's hands, and though he intends to board the train with it, he is immediately found out by the conductor, Corvus. We are introduced to her and her attendant Ima, and Corvus uses her arcane skill to stitch the boy in place, and it is revealed that the boy is actually none other than our main character for this story, Rabuska. They retrieve the stolen ticket, and just when it seems that Rabuska will not be allowed to embark, Semmelweis swoops in and claims her as an assistant, having her take the place of one of her teammates who still hasn't shown up, allowing Rabuska to board the train. The train is delayed, and on the train, Semmelweis reveals that she has been seeking a vampire associated with the Manus Vindictae and has suspicions that they may be aboard. However, upon showing Rabuska the Manus symbol that she is searching for, Rabuska does not recognize it. And at this point, Corvus calls Semmelweis into her cabin, leaving Rabuska unattended. Naturally, she attempts to escape, though, I mean, she's on a train, so I don't really know where she intended to go. Regardless, she is almost immediately sidetracked after meeting some children. They hit it off, and Rabuska brags about being a vampire, which the kids just love. With Semmelweis, Corvus demands to know her intentions, which she relays the details of her search and her affiliation with the Foundation, and as chance would have it, Semmelweis notices that Corvus actually has a medal bearing the Manus insignia that she has been searching for, though for the time being she opts to keep quiet about it. Eventually, the tracks are cleaned and the train is cleared to depart, and Semmelweis and Corvus begin interviewing each of the passengers in order to find this vampire. They run into Rabuska, who is still chatting with the children, and the children inadvertently let slip that she is in fact a vampire herself. And naturally, this results in Rabuska getting tied up and interrogated. She gets mad, she has this big, grand speech about how senseless it is to be judging people based on these arbitrary labels, which actually does sway Corvus into letting her go, and Rabuska immediately decides to fight them. And as expected, she gets her ass kicked and is pawned off on Ima to keep watch over her. Ima and Rabuska have a bit of a bonding moment in her carriage, in which we learn a bit more of each of their backgrounds. Rabuska is an orphan who has lost her family in the frequent conflicts of the region, and Ima has an uncle who sends her gifts, who we will meet shortly. This is also the first real indication that Ima is not all that she seems. On top of having a suspicious eye patch, it is also mentioned that there are no mirrors in her room. In a patch about vampires on a train, what could that possibly imply, I wonder? Who knows? Some time passes, Rabuska falls asleep and the train stops, allegedly to clear off some snow that has built up on the tracks ahead. However, this is clearly just a ruse. Corvus and Ima get off of the train, and Semmel sneaks off as well in order to tail them, finding that the blockage was in fact a lie, and they're actually meeting up with some soldiers. Corvus flashes the Manus insignia, which the soldiers recognize, and they hitch a secret 13th cabin to the train. Semmelweis is caught by some of the soldiers on guard, but she easily dispatches them, proving that once again, guns are the strongest magic. Back in Ima's quarters, Robuska awakens alone and takes the opportunity to explore the train. She goes down the carriages one by one, only to find that the mysterious 13th carriage has now been appended at the end. Recollections of the myth of the vampire train resurface, and a lot of suspense is built up. She opens the door and finds that it is actually a bunch of refugees. As it turns out, Corvus has been smuggling people across the border to Budapest to help them escape their war-torn homes. And after this, the train shortly begins moving again, and we arrive at the next checkpoint, where we finally meet the primary antagonist of this story, Pyrrhos. He is Ima's uncle and Corvus's old comrade, and he and his men have been aiding Corvus in shuttling refugees across the border. Pyrrhos makes an inspection of the train, which conveniently results in them finding an infected, indicating the presence of a vampire on board. Naturally, Robuska is assumed responsible and she is knocked out and taken into custody. Pyrrhos then takes command of the train, essentially turning everybody on board into his hostages. Robuska awakens in a basement with a bunch of dead bodies, where Pyrrhos reveals that, surprise surprise, he is the vampire that everyone's been looking for, and he's been turning people into his thralls this entire time. He makes fun of Robuska because, as you may have already guessed, she is not a real vampire, she is just LARPing. But then he takes pity on her, offering to properly make her a vampire, an offer that she seemingly accepts. Back on the train, Corvus and Semmel are held in custody by Pyrrhos' soldiers, who have been taking passengers off the train one by one to an undisclosed secondary location. Semmel and Corvus talk a bit, and it's revealed that Pyrrhos had once been part of her squad when she was still in the rebel forces, and it was him who had given her the Manus token as a secret code to show his people. They both agree that things have gotten out of hand and it's time to put secrets aside and work together to deal with this guy and the infecteds, when one such infected slams into the window, demanding to be let in, and is promptly pulled away and dispatched by Ima. As it turns out, she is also part vampire, which probably should have been obvious the moment we met Pyrrhos, right? She is his niece. In any case, Corvus reveals that she has another hobby beyond knitting, which just happens to be collecting enough weapons to arm a small militia. They take these, distribute them to the passengers and the refugees in the 13th car, and march in to beat Pyrrhos' ass. Back with Robuska, she is seemingly swayed by Pyrrhos' vampire wiles, but it is just a ruse. She gets the jump on him and stabs him through the heart with a stake. Unfortunately, this is not a children's bedtime story, and the stake proves ineffective, and Pyrrhos throws her off, and as he's about to put her down, the Danube Dawn folk barge in, guns blazing. Corvus has a short heart-to-heart with him, asking why he went back on everything they believed in, and his reason was just that he had gotten impatient. The man literally has an eternity to figure things out, and he still got impatient. He had grown frustrated with the fact that people will continue to fight and divide based on the soil they were born on or the blood they share, leading to senseless suffering. However, rather than be, reasonable and diplomatic and try to figure it out without unnecessary bloodshed, again, the man has an infinite amount of time to do this, he instead just decides to burn the whole thing to the ground and make everyone a vampire. Additionally, he mentions hearing a song projected into his mind that may have influenced him. I'm assuming that this is Manus stuff and it will be significant at a later point in the story, but for now it is just a passing note. Needless to say, he cannot be reasoned with, so we just kill him. And at the end of it all, Pyrrhos regresses to his normal self, lamenting that his efforts have been in vain and telling Corvus that it is now her job to carry on the torch. To which she replies with a basically, no shit idiot, and that she was going to do that anyways. They blow up the checkpoint to get rid of the infected, and everything ends happily ever after. Semmelweis goes off to do her job, claiming that she will never ever get involved with any mission pertaining to vampires ever again. Robuska joins the Danube Dawn crew, and finally, one of the minor characters, Verity, and an editor for the Utu, brings up the fact that Corvus pre-Storm had actually been her partner at Utu, and Verity is somewhat saddened to see that none of her previous existence remained in the conductor. We're also given a bit of lore regarding Utu itself, specifically that Pandora Wilson, the editor-in-chief, has been MIA for an unspecified amount of time now, with everyone kind of scrambling to fill in her place. This is probably another point to keep in mind for the future, but for now, just a small side note. And that is basically it. It's a pretty straightforward story, I think. I do think it had some pacing issues and some questionable writing decisions, but overall it was fine. And thank you to Bones and Apple, Pompa Aerostar, Amane Echo, and Chip II for supporting me on YouTube and being members. And a special thank you to Chip II and Amane Echo for the 5 gifted members each. It really does mean a ton. And for the rest of you, thank you for coming in. I hope this was at least somewhat informative, and I will see you on the next one. All right, bye bye.